Hey there everyone and welcome to an 8th anniversary video. So I'm going to do two videos on the 8th anniversary. The second one's going to be a lot of hatching, where I'm going to be hatching on the second banner that we're going to get. And then this one is going to be talking about the anniversary in general. I'm going to do some hatching. I'm going to do the guaranteed mythic hatch. But otherwise, talking about the anniversary in general, the egg pool update, the new monsters, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to say is the two festival eggs overlap, so do not hatch for the first one until the second one is out, because then you can make the decision which one you want to go for. It just makes a whole lot more sense. I know it's very tempting to start hatching as soon as you see the first one, but it's much better to wait and then have the more informed decision. So next we're going to talk about the egg pool update. So if you're not aware of this, I just want to briefly explain how this whole system works. Is that when new monsters come out, they are what's called limited, and so they are not in the egg pools normally, but they just come in for particular eggs, which they like to call special eggs, and then they're featured for that egg, and then they go away again. And then periodically, it's every anniversary, they then put some of those limited monsters into some kind of egg pool. And the way it normally does it is it filters through into either the special egg or the rare egg, usually the rare egg first, and then they go and get some get moved across to the special eggs from the rare egg, new ones enter the rare eggs, and then it filters from the special eggs down into the gold egg or into the shop. So that's kind of the system there. And if you don't know the names of the eggs, the rare gold egg is basically the rare gems egg. The special eggs are basically the ones which we get every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, where it's like featuring new monsters and that kind of thing. And then the gold egg is the kind of standard egg, which is the retirement place, and it's got the standard pool of mythics, no sort of limited mythics in it at all, and it's got a lot of the older legendaries. There's a lot in there which you can't actually get anywhere else, and they're the two banners which you see between when you first go into the hatching screen, and if you go left to the friend chest, there's two screens between there. So those eggs, they've slowly been becoming a lot more appealing. Originally, it was kind of the standard pool, a lot of monsters that people already had. People didn't want to do it, but over time, it's now got a lot of monsters you can't get anywhere else. And if you want to awaken any of the mythics that are in standard pool, that's actually the best place to do it. Because as we move to looking at the new monsters that go into the rare eggs and stuff, we have 6 new mythics going into the standard pool that were limited before. That brings the total up to 32 mythics, which, because the drop rate is 0.25% of getting a standard pool mythic, when you're hatching in a special egg, you'll get one of those 32, and you need 4 copies of it. Like, that is just not happening. You'll occasionally get one of them, maybe you'll get 2 of a particular one, but if you actually want to awaken them, you're probably going to have to go to the gold egg now, which there are lots of legendaries and stuff which are unique to the gold egg, so it's really not a bad place to go hatching if you want to awaken any of those mythics. Yes, so that's enough on that. Of these 6 mythics that are going in, Fiona I really like. That's a good stealth and beast team support. Karina is really good for PvE, and Asmodia is really good for PvP, especially poison teams. Yeah, those are the 3 which I would say is the standouts of them if you want to go for those gold egg mythics. Those 6 mythics, it doesn't say here so clearly, but they're actually going into all of the eggs. The standard egg pool of all of the eggs is the same for mythics, and these 6 are going into all 3 of them. As for the legendaries, there's nothing too special really going on here, like not too many monsters. The last year we had Wraith Captain go into the rare egg pool, which was quite an exciting one. You can see it's actually being taken out here, and I was a little bit worried because I looked over in the normal special egg, and it doesn't actually list Wraith Captain going in there, which I was a bit worried about that. However, I went and looked in the egg pool itself, and it is there, so I think it's just not properly listed. But anyway, Wraith Captain is now in those special eggs rather than the rare egg. That's the main one, really. Other than that, there's not too much special going on there. Leogeist, it says, is going into the standard egg pool. I think that may have been in there already. That may be where they messed up. That they listed that rather than the Wraith Captain. I'm not entirely sure, so I don't fully trust this. But yeah, of the super epics, I think that's probably where the other one of note is that going into the rare egg pool, there is Dreadmoth. Dreadmoth is a very, very recent super epic, and it's probably one of the best super epics in the game. It's extremely viable in PvP. I highly recommend picking up and using it if you haven't got it already. So check that out and you will not be disappointed. So beyond that, not really anything else to say. We've obviously got a couple of different icons here that you can choose. I went for the bee. I think most people have gone for the bee. This Strawberry is a random monster that we get. It's actually pretty bad. It's a token monster that's made by a monster as like a negative for your team. So I don't know if anyone will actually be using it, but it's a fun little story monster. And then we've got the Neo ticket, and otherwise the guaranteed mythic, which we're going to get to that later. So the Neo ticket in the shop. This is another one I'm going to advise here. There's a bunch of different mythics you can go for. It's really hard at this point because there are so many to pick between to advise any particular one. It really depends on what you're going for. So I'll highlight a few. And there's actually another channel on YouTube, which I highly recommend you go check out, called Near Monsters Gameplay. And they do videos like the one I'm doing now. And they've got a few suggestions of monsters. And actually, I'm going to suggest pretty similar monsters to them. So Bastia, this is one of the best mythics in the game for PvP especially, but it also does kind of broken stuff for PvE. You want it awakened for PvP. It doesn't fit every team, but it's an incredible support monster. Plumesalisk, this is a really good stun protection, tanky protector. Very, very good. Definitely nothing bad about that. There's other good ones here, but nothing to really highlight especially on that page. Then we've got Satumi. Now Satumi, I think I recommended this most last year because it's really good in its second form as well. So whether or not you're awakening it or you're just getting it in second form, it's a really good choice. The one thing I will say about it is it's basically a generic sweeper, and we've got quite a few powerful generic mythic sweepers now. And so it doesn't stand out quite so much. It may be kind of outclassed in the long run. So just something to keep in mind. We've seen that with Suikenshi, that it's kind of getting outclassed over time. So bear that in mind if you're going to pick that one. And then otherwise, ones that I would pick out, Arachnodiva. This is awesome. I do not think this is going to get outdated. It just does really good control of the battlefield by turning teammates into protectors, so they have to be killed off by the enemy team. Piercing kills, camouflage and death, ultimate payback revenge is just awesome. Really, really good monster. I awakened this last anniversary, or anyway, in the last year, and I've used it a lot, and it's definitely very strong. Onyxia's great stun protection that's tanky, and Suikenshi, I mentioned this already, it's kind of getting outclassed with time, but it is a good sweeper. That's pretty much it from what I'd mention. There's a few others which are worthy of note, but those are the ones which I would pick. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the update notes. Now, I don't normally cover this on YouTube. I cover it on the forum a bit, and I do a tier list update based on every update, so you get to kind of hear my opinions on some things there. But this one is really significant, and it came out at the anniversary. Also, every year I like to cover all the monsters that came out. I'll be starting that series very shortly, and in that I talk about the most significant changes that happened in the year. So I will talk about stuff from this update in that. So I don't want to go into massive detail, but there was a huge change here to do with the stun mechanic. And that is basically that you can't stun things multiple times. You can only stun things once, and then they cannot be stunned until they get their next turn. What that really does for the game, predominantly, is for team building in PvP. It's a massive positive, because it was possible to build teams where you had quite a few stun monsters in a row, and so if you're losing, you just kill the enemy team's stun protection, and then you know that when you get to that point in your team, you're going to stun the enemies out of play and be able to take control of the battle again and win. And it was just a really cheap and easy tactic that you could do. There was a lot of ways to kind of just abuse that, and so it's been a big gripe in the community for a very long time, and they finally decided to fix that by making it so you can't push enemies really far out of play with stun. You can only stun them that single time. So how that affects team building is that you now don't need to go quite so heavy on stun protection, because what people were having to do to combat this kind of cheap tactic is that they had to just go super hard on stun protection, so that it wasn't so easy to just remove their stun protection to then make their team stunnable. But now, because you're not able to do that, stun is still going to be strong. You can still use it to turn around a battle, but you have to use it more sparingly, and so stun protection doesn't have to be used quite so much, which then means a lot of monsters that don't have stun immunity and that kind of thing are far more playable, because you know, you don't have to worry about those just losing the game because you were stunned too hard. So that's what it's doing. In terms of what it's doing to all the monsters in the game, and like the larger, you know, the grander scheme of things, it's very hard to gauge everything. It will become clear with time, but mostly this is a change for PvP, and there's a bunch of passives and active skills you see at the bottom, which are noted as they do not trigger this temporary stun immunity. And to summarize them, basically they're ones where it was there just for some control, or like it was a tiny stun, that kind of thing. It wasn't actually part of this particular setup where you are spamming, you know, a bunch of stun in a row and using that to then take control of the battle and win. The one move on here which is kind of questionable is the final move, Petal Blitz. That is on I can't remember what they're called. They're like these fairy things, the nymphs or whatever. They're these super epics, and they're meant to be used together, and basically one of them can use this Petal Blitz move, which stuns enemies by 100 seconds, and it's 3 uses, and it's 70 seconds, I think, to use. So you can stun all enemies for 300 seconds with that. Now, I say it's slightly questionable because that is like full stun lock with that, but I guess the thinking is that it's quite a specific setup. But that for PvE, if you are quite disappointed with this change because you can't do what you wanted to do in PvE, they can still do a stun lock. So if you want to do some kind of stun lock setup to, say, use Nova Blast and that kind of thing, say it's a game of hordes kind of, a time attack type situation, and you want to make them stunnable, stun them all, and then do Nova Blast to finish them off, Petal Blitz can get you there potentially. That is something which might be able to work. So that's all that stuff to do with stun. I won't go any deeper on it. Otherwise, we'll just briefly go over this update. Lilithia is now super strong. It's one of the best mythics in the game. I did a video very recently about the top 10 mythics, and Lilithia got buffed, and then, you know, with this as well, it should be in there in the top 10. Brixis, I don't think that that update has changed anything. I think her problem is actually the Sonic Break, which this doesn't change. Sorrel got hit with 3 nerfs. There's also a cost increase, which is listed on a later page. Sorrel is now gone from top 5 to kind of a mediocre mythic. I'm a little bit disappointed in that, and like similarly, I covered that in my top 10 mythics because, you know, it was like in the top 5, and then now it's a medium one. But anyway, not much that can be done about that. About the video, I mean. Vixian, not really going to change too much. Vixian is just very situational. Arachnodrake, now this is actually a pretty good one. So Arachnodrake originally had raw stealth at 50 seconds, and then they changed all the raw moves to have the standard seconds, which meant that it just randomly became 70 seconds, and that meant that the moveset doesn't really work super well because he really needs to be stealthed in order to get the piercing. So they decided to move this back to 50 seconds, which is brilliant because that 50 seconds is actually really fast, so it's very hard to continually remove stealth from him. So I think Arachnodrake has become a lot more viable. It's not a top monster, but it is. It's going to sweep. It's going to sweep very effectively in PvE. It's going to be very good because piercing in PvE, when you do like high damage, like Arachnodrake does, is very strong. Also, stealth is very strong in PvE because the AI doesn't handle it super well. So Arachnodrake has become much better with this. Berry now has antidote assassinate. Maybe it is assassinate and it's not piercing there. Either way, Berry has a bunch of good offensive moves now. She's like fully offensive, and that should be quite good. Mechhydra got a massive revamp here. Should make it a lot better. You can't see here because it was in the recent update. It got a Venom Dual Slayerbane, which basically was no good because its attack wasn't high enough. But now you just need to use it with a robot, and its attack is high enough. So then it's, really, really good monster. So do check out Mechhydra if you've counted it out before. It's now a lot stronger. It's going to be a nightmare meeting in PvE because it's so tanky and then can kill things really easily. Flushdrake Maeve got kind of ruined. I don't really want to go into that in great detail, but she's now a very specific setup kind of monster. Vixen Blade. So this has been a slightly controversial monster this year. I'm not going to go into it in great depth, but basically it's super, super strong. And this passive makes it... this addition in the update makes it even more niche. So now you have to not use protectors, water, or beasts. which is pretty restrictive. So it's basically a payoff for not doing that stuff. And it was also particularly nasty behind protectors because it had this Slayerbane move. So, they kill your protector and then you punish them for it with only like 60-second piercing move. It was really harsh. So having the protector condition in there as well, as in no protectors being used with it, is a smart one, I think. Evelon, that's rubbish monster, I'm not really going to talk about it. And then the other two are basically meta changes because Shiny Tridracan and Deathgazer were being used quite a lot at the back of the team, so they've been nerfed a bit. And then we got some cost changes to things there. So that's the update. We're now going to look at the new monsters. This is the first of the 2 eggs, and honestly, these new monsters are really bad. Honghua, it's probably the worst mythic in the game. Yeah, there's not really much going for it. Like, it's low speed, and then basically what it does is it kills teammates. And it just flails around doing that. And if you manage to get 2 on the battlefield, then you can do Riptide Rend. But what the opponent should do, and I'm talking about PvP, of course, what the opponent can do is just keep killing one of them. So keep leaving just one alive, and then what it has to do is kill a teammate in order to then get 2 again, and then you kill one of them. And so they kind of just kill off their own team while you do that. Now, at some point in the battle, it will probably line up that they can get 2 at once, and you need to sort of be prepared for that's going to happen, and you may need to actually kill off the both copies of them to stop that from happening. But it basically flails around like a Doom engine and doesn't really do much because that's all it can do other than pure cure and assisted blaze. You would have thought that it'd be really good to sacrifice a token so that it then turns the token into one of it. But because it's got Lava Entrance Plus, that basically kills tokens, so then you don't have the token to sacrifice, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, that's basically that monster. I don't know what they were thinking when they designed it. It could be a lot better, and the artwork is absolutely disgusting. So then we go look at the legendary. This legendary is basically a bit wacky. Its speed is very low, and what it does is it kind of messes with the enemy, so either sends it to the end of the team, sends it next in line, or kills it and replaces it with some kind of token. So either a bronze shell, a strawberry bow, which was the thing we saw at the beginning of this, or a Yuki. And all of those moves are 160 seconds. They're fine, but they're just a bit too slow. Now, if they were fast, this would be super powerful. So I get what they, were doing, why they had to make it a bit slow, especially because, the Merry Christmas move here, literally killing any monster of your choice, that is definitely a strong move. So, this Straw Baba has to be low speed to make that, kind of not broken. Similarly, the secret skill is actually really strong. It may look a bit weird at first, you're speeding up your opponent's moves as well. But what you do is you only use this when it's actually going to be beneficial, when you've got turns next lined up. So then basically you speed up your team, you then kill the enemies before they get turns. So they never get the benefit of the sped up moves. And yeah, you can do that. Additionally, something that someone has noted is that you use this and then you give turn back to the Straw Baba. I keep having to check its name there. And then you can use any of the 3 moves in rapid succession, because of course it itself is sped up by 80%. So the next move it uses is very, very quick. So if you give turn to it, it can then kill or knock back an enemy, and then very shortly afterwards, kill or knock back an enemy. So you can really mess with the enemy team like that. It's definitely good if it lines up, but that's basically the only selling point of it. I'm also a little bit unsure about the fact that it's got explosive revenge all. So if you give them bronze shells and then they kill it, the bronze shells immediately die. So yeah, it's not very good, I don't think. So the fact that both of them are not very good makes me very down on this egg. I think the other one is going to be a lot better than this one. So moving on to the new legendaries, which are the starters in their legendary form. Now these are pretty awesome. On the forum community, it is a bunch of veterans, and they are generally skeptical of new monsters that come out if they're not clearly really strong and that kind of thing. I don't know how everyone else approaches these monsters, but I'm trying to look at them in a more kind of general sense, as well as also, new players will have access to these. Everyone can get them. And yes, okay, a couple of them won't really see much play competitively in PvP, but I think a couple of them are actually really quite strong. And the important thing about them is they're all high speed. They're all slightly lower speed than like their lower forms, but the fact that they're high speed means they're going to come in and do something very quickly, and a lot of them have hold ground as well, so it's very hard to stop them from doing something. And that is in itself a lot stronger than you would think. So they will play well, is what I'm trying to say. Now, to get these, I'll show up on screen right now. Evolving them, it takes a lot of ingredients. What they did here, I think, is basically not make them rare ingredients. So you're not having to kind of weigh up, okay, do I evolve this, or do I evolve one of my other legendaries or my mythic or something like that. Instead, it's just the standard stuff. But it's very farmable, so you can go and get these at your leisure and get to evolve your starters to legendary form fairly easily, like fairly cheaply. It's just, it takes some effort to go farm. So I think that's a nice way of doing it. So talking about these 4 monsters, actually, what they're like. I'll talk about the bad ones first. So Virid This is quite clearly an upgraded version of the super epic form, where it made the Retribution and the Desperate Bite double. That's basically what it did with a moveset. Their seconds cost is quite high, and the damage is not going to be insane. I don't know exactly. I haven't tested it yet. I don't think it's going to deal with like the really tanky stuff that we have around, but it will do good damage. And what was always good about this monster is having high speed with Accelerate Team is really nice. There aren't actually many legendaries in the game which have that. Most of them are super epics. This was one of the good super epics with it, and so there may be some teams that you actually want to use it and do the Accelerate Team, and then those moves being slow, well, they're not actually that slow anymore, and it's more decent than a super epic with Accelerate Team. So there may be some use cases like that. I think in PvE it's going to be very good for that. If I was a new player, I would very much get a lot of benefit from playing this in PvE. Having it in the front line, doing Accelerate Team, and making the rest of my team a lot better. While this is not a shabby monster at all. For PvP, basically what you're looking at is the secret skill. The secret skill on this one is, I think, the only one that has a good secret skill. It can come in and kill poison monsters, and not affect their revenges, not trigger their revenges. That is very powerful, and so if there are like poison end games around in the meta, that will be really good to come in and counter that. Definitely worthwhile for that. The other one that's kind of bad, and this is the sort of genuinely quite bad one, is Raid Kong. So the speed on this is down at 80%. It is the slowest of them, and its moveset didn't really get any upgrade over the super epic one. All this really had as a selling point was it was a fast monster that could throw at the start of a battle, which was good about 6 years ago, and then now it's like not really that great because it won't really kill things, and there are so much better throw monsters in the game that there's not really any reason to use this. The secret skill's also really disappointing. It's like, give up 100 seconds of your time to add 100 seconds of one enemy, but it can only be used on humanoids. And then the lava entrance, it's not particularly helpful. So yeah, it's sort of a bad throw monster. There are much better throw monsters. I'm not going to go in any deeper than that. Galv Bishaman. Now this is pretty cool. I like what they did, that they basically didn't change the moveset from Galvbane, and Galvbane was kind of known as the best of the bunch originally. All they added was piercing when you're facing a mythic. So it's not just against mythics, against anything, but as long as there's a mythic on the enemy battlefield, then you get piercing, which is very important, particularly for Bloodcrave. So you still have the normal Stun Pulse into Time Strike to get a kill, Protector Killer to kill protectors, and you only need one kill to then get the Bloodcrave. Where this was suffering before was the protectors were basically too tanky that you couldn't one-shot them with Protector Killer, which obviously piercing completely corrects. And similarly, Time Strike wasn't really enough damage to kill a lot of things, but now again, piercing corrects that. So you can very easily get that kill with either Time Strike after a Stun Pulse or Protector Killer. And then once you have that, you are then doing 100-second piercing killing, which is no joke. Like, that's what Mythics like would dream about doing, really. Not many of them actually have that. So I think this monster is actually really good. The thing about this monster, and like somewhat why I'm excited about it, is because stun has been changed, people are going to be running less stun protection. At the moment, I would say this won't play super well because people are playing a lot of stun protection, that you won't necessarily be able to easily stun pulse into time strike. But once people go a little lighter on stun protection, you can probably use this a bit more easily, and then it will just be like a fairly reliable sweeper. Also, the way things are trending, people use a lot of mythics at the moment. They're going to be using even more in the future, so I think this will play really nicely into that. It will be a way for for newer players who don't have access to awakened mythics and stuff to have a monster that can actually play very well with them. So I'm pretty hyped for Kappa Shaman. I think this is a good monster. Pure Cure I don't think is particularly relevant. But as I said at the beginning of this, high speed with whole ground means this is going to play reasonably well. To come in and then do its thing and then become a sweeper basically. So it should play pretty well. It's not going to be exceptional, but it's going to be pretty good. The best of the bunch though, I think, is Wulfenrir. Now this of them, it's got the high speed, it's got low defense and stuff like all of them. But this one is really threatening on its first turn, and to kill it you have to get through the whole ground, and also you have to have something to deal with stun revenge, because right now, if everyone's running stun protection, like stun revenge isn't too exciting, but there are definitely times where stun revenge is a big problem for the opponent, where they do not want to trigger stun revenge, and this really punishes them with a dual Slayerbane on. Bear in mind, this is a full attack monster. This will do high damage with dual Slayerbane, so I think this is actually very, very good for that. And will it hang with the strongest monsters in the game? Will it hang with like the strongest mythics? I don't know, probably, it will be viable but not exceptional. But I think for newer players, this is actually really, really powerful. And I think it is good enough that it will see a fair bit of play. If you're not doing dual Slayerbane, which bear in mind, dual Slayerbane is a very generic move. Monsters get kills, they just do. So dual Slayerbane is going to be very good. But you can also then, if that's not the case, do energy charge into laser blast, which is, a piercing kill at a reasonably respectable rate. Because of the whole ground as well, energy charge is going to be nice to heal yourself with whole ground. I think that's going to make this really good in PvE, where also laser blast is going to be a decent way of killing enemies, because when they're a bit buffed, dual Slayerbane isn't going to do amazing damage, but a piercing laser blast is after a couple of charges. It can also be a high speed, we're talking about 83% here, killing a protector. It also negates the revenge, which is nice for a few different protectors. So yeah, this has quite a lot of potential. I'm pretty hyped for it. The only thing, and this goes for all of them, is because they've got such low defense and low HP, they're going to be dying like super epics. They are not going to feel tanky at all. They're going to be glass cannons, but Wulfenrir is going to be a worthy glass cannon because it's going to do a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I recorded me doing the guaranteed mythic hatching just now, and my recorder did not record. So there's audio of me hatching, but not any visual, so I'm not going to bother showing that. What I got was 9 epics, so absolutely nothing, and then a Vixen Blade. So I've got Vixen Blade at +3. This is definitely one I want to awaken. So I'm very happy with that. It's very cool, and I wasn't going to show it, but I will show off these new starters as they're in their legendary form in a little bit of a battle. And otherwise, say with my outro here of thanks for watching, I hope you enjoy it. Next week I will be doing the video which is, I can't actually play and concentrate here, play and talk very easily. But yeah, next week I'll be bringing out the hatching video, which is going to be hatching that second banner. The first one, like I said, I'm not interested in it at all, really. So I'm just going to do the second egg, and that'll be next week. I've got a lot of gems, so I'm definitely planning on awakening that mythic. Hopefully it goes all well. And so if you're interested in seeing that, then you can join me for that next week. As you can see, these monsters have unfortunately died. But yeah, hope you enjoy seeing them there, and I'll catch you next week.